Big block V8 engines are inextricably intertwined with the American muscle car golden age that ran roughly from the late 1950s to the early 1970s. Often described by a single metric, that being cubic inches, big blocks are basically where the famous phrase, "no replacement for displacement," came from. Typically, big blocks feature at least 396 cubic inches of displacement, a long stroke, a small cylinder bore, and splayed valves rather than an inline configuration. So what's the most powerful big block V8 engine of all time? It's actually not from the golden age of muscle, but like all the most iconic big block, it's from one of Detroit's big three automakers. To get there, it's worth pointing out the other top 10 most potent big blocks ever created. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with Motorythmm and all the latest automotive industry happenings. Ford 429 Cobra Jet. Like so many ultra-powerful big block V8s, the Ford 429 Cobra Jet was short-lived, seeing production only from 1968 to 1971. By 1972, it was toast, the result of a multi-pronged barrier to the future of huge gas-guzzling monster motors. That being the OPEC oil crisis, increasingly stringent federal emissions regulations, and an insurance industry wising up to the reality of what car enthusiasts were stuffing under the hoods of their 60s-era muscle cars. But before that, Ford unleashed the 429 Cobra Jet, featuring a 4.36-inch bore and 3.59-inch stroke with a compression ratio of 11.3 to 1. It can make as much as 370 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. It powered everything from Ford Torino Cobras to the Mercury Cougar Eliminator and Ford Ranchero. However, perhaps the most famous application was the 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429. This brute could hit 60 miles per hour from a standstill in less than 6 seconds and is a sought-after collectible today with recent auction prices at more than $250,000. Chrysler 440 six-pack. Chrysler's no stranger to the big block conversion with all manner of legends that we'll get to shortly, but one of its least powerful engines, which is a relative term, is the 440 six-pack V8. Boasting 7.2 liters of displacement, it saw duty in the Dodge Challenger and Charger of the era. It's also making a modern-day return, at least in name, with the upcoming electrified Dodge Charger Daytona. But back in the heyday of wildly inefficient gas-swilling performance, the 440 six-pack was all about that internal combustion. It featured an aluminum Edelbrock intake manifold topped by a trio of Holley carburetors. Under relaxed driving, only the 350 CFM center unit was engaged. But put your foot in it and the pair of 500 CFM carbs front and back were uncorked, and the full potency of this epic big block came to bear, as in up to 390 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. Dodge 426 Hemi V8. No list of epic big blocks would be complete without the Hemi. A legendary name, this engine gained its nickname from the novel at the time hemispherical combustion chambers. An efficient shape with an excellent surface-to-volume ratio, the Hemi had room for two huge valves and soon became a household name thanks to clever Chrysler marketing. The 7 liters of displacement was big for the time and one of Dodge's largest engines of all time. It was known as the Elephant engine due to its high power, hugely heavy weight, and giant size, a name that would return to Dodge circles some 50 years later. But in the late 60s Challenger and Charger RTs that the 426 Hemi powered, it was a beast, making 420 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. The high-performance Hemi could sling these steel sleds to 60 miles per hour in just 5 seconds flat. If you want an untouched original model today, expect to pay deep into the 6 figures. Chevy 427 L72. Chevy used the 427 L72 across a wide variety of models and offered it in 4 different configurations. It marked the pinnacle of Chevy performance in 1966 and was a rare beast for those who wanted to enjoy its big block grunt in full-size sedan form. Fewer than 2,000 full-size Chevy cars were made with the L72 that year, out of nearly 1.5 million cars made in total. That included legends like the Impala SS Bel Air Biscayne and the rare Impala wagon. Featuring a cast-iron block, 11-to-1 compression ratio, and 7 liters of thundering displacement, the Chevy 427 L72 could make up to 425 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of earth-warping torque. It even came with a high-performance camshaft to encourage ultra-high revving action. But it is perhaps the C2 Corvettes with these motors that have gone on to become the most notable models. An unmodified example recently fetched almost $200,000 at auction. Ford FE 427. Across the Blue Oval history books, there is no shortage of epic vehicles with legend status thanks to their performance. Like the Le Mans winning Ford GT40, the National Hot Rod Association Beast Fairlane Thunderbolt, and of course the almighty AC Shelby Cobra. Though these cars had different design intents, from endurance racing to drag strip domination, they all shared something under the hood: a 7.0-liter Ford big block V8 with a cast iron block. Capable of making 425 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque, this Ford FE 427 came from a family of big blocks with as few as 332 cubic inches of displacement. But the 427 was the family monster with 4.23-inch cylinder bores, a 3.78-inch stroke, and the kind of heavy-breathing, high RPM screaming characteristics that made it the perfect poster child for winning on Sunday and selling on Monday. A lucky few also got their hands on this big V8 in classics like the Ford Galaxy and Mercury Marauder. Chevy 454 LS6. Ask any muscle car aficionado about the greatest engines of all time, big block or otherwise, and Chevy's 454 LS6 is all but guaranteed to be part of the conversation. It's one of the most iconic Chevy engines that was known for powering the 1970 Corvette and 1970 Chevelle SS. In the Chevelle, it was factory rated for a staggering 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. For marketing and brand hierarchy reasons, this big block was said to make 460 horsepower when fitted to the Corvette. Either way, the 454 LS6 was an epic feat of powertrain engineering with an 11.25:1 compression ratio, cast iron rectangular port heads with 2.19-inch intake openings and 1.88-inch exhaust openings, not to mention solid lifter camshafts and an enormous 800 cubic feet per minute Holley carb on top. It was the most powerful factory engine of its day, known for the ability to roast a set of tires at the drop of a hat at nearly any speed. Little wonder well cared for Chevelle models can fetch as much as $170,000 today. Chevy 454 LSX. Moving into the modern age, discussion of ultra-powerful big blocks often means looking at the aftermarket crate engine world. That's because big block V8s from the factory are few and far between these days, replaced by small displacement engines, often with half the cylinder count and forced induction to meet ever more stringent fuel economy standards. But with a crate engine like the Chevy 454 LSX, gearheads can sidestep these regulations and drop a modern big block in their rest mod or custom build. Chevy calls the LSX a 21st century 454 and backs that up with serious performance. This 7.2-liter power plant can make up to 620 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque, while only setting buyers back about $14,000. When it debuted in 2014, it was the Bowtie brand's most powerful crate engine ever, blending the torque of a big block with the high RPM potential of a cammed-up small block V8. The LSX featured a cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft, and connecting rods and aluminum pistons. Chevy ZZ 572 720R. As Chevy began to fill out their high-performance crate engine division, the ZZ 572 quickly became a hit. Like the name suggests, this brute displaces 570 cubic inches or 9.4 liters, aimed at the drag racing and hot rod crowd. It features a forged steel crankshaft and forged aluminum pistons. With a $20,000 price tag and output figures of 727 horsepower and 680 pound-feet of torque, the ZZ 572 was a big block V8 force to be reckoned with. Its biggest selling point was the fact that it landed on customer doorsteps fully assembled. No need to wait for it to get put together by a local race shop. Instead, buyers could just bolt on the Dominator-style 1150 CFM carb, add a starter, install a fuel pump, and hit the drag strip. Chevy dubbed the king of all rat engines and noted it was ready, willing, and able to pull your bracket racker or heads-up Challenger down the 1320 in the 9-second range. Chevy ZZ 632 1000. We've hit the 1,000 power mark, 1,004 to be exact, with Chevy's penultimate big block V8 crate engine, the ZZ 632. Debuting at the legendary Las Vegas SEMA show in 2021, this epic tribute to internal combustion is the most potent Chevy crate engine currently on the market. It'll set you back a cool $32,000, but some may consider that chump change when you consider this 10.4-liter monster can put down a whopping 876 pound-feet of torque to go with all that horsepower. Like every big block on this list, the ZZ 632 is 100% 100% naturally aspirated, all 632 cubic inches. It features CNC machined high-flow aluminum cylinder heads and equally sized intake ports across all 8 cylinders. These RXX symmetrical port cylinder heads were named for Chevy powertrain engineer Ron Sperry, who designed them as one of his final achievements in a GM performance and racing engine career spanning more than 5 decades. Dodge Elephant A170. Remember our comment about the old-school 426 Hemi being nicknamed the Elephant? And of course, no one can forget Dodge's modern big block masterpieces, the Hellcats. So back in 2018, the automaker blended its 2 most legendary engine creations into the Hellelephant. This beast is a 6.2-liter V8 combined with a 3.0-liter supercharger that costs just under $30,000. For that outlay, buyers of this all-time most powerful big block V8 engine will get a whopping 1,100 horsepower and 950 pound-feet of torque. It has all the exciting specs to go along with it, including a 4.125-inch bore, a 4.0-inch stroke, 4 bold powder metal caps, a forged steel crank and connecting rods, and forged aluminum pistons. As of now, the Hellelephant A170 has the title of most powerful big block V8 in history. Will it be overtaken? Only time will tell. So be sure to click the subscribe button below so you can stay up to date with all the automotive happenings here on Motor Rhythm.